Every franchise has a stumble or a misstep. A game that fans just didn't like and tend to just ignore and pretend doesn't exist. Resident Evil 6, pretty much every Silent Hill game past 3, Final Fantasy 8, 11, 12, 13, you get the idea. Devil May Cry's second entry also falls into that category, especially from fans of the original title. But is it really that bad? Since we're going through the whole trilogy on the Switch, we're about to find out. Here is my review of Devil May Cry 2 for the Nintendo Switch. When it comes to story, this game takes place sometime after the events of the original game. Dante is approached by a girl called Lucia and recruited to stop a powerful businessman from making a contract with a powerful demon. Dante then goes on a journey to find and take him down before he can gain the demonic powers he seeks to be able to take over the human world. Now the story here it's alright. When I reviewed the first game, I criticized the lack of characterization for Dante and the other characters, and there's even less character development for him in 2. Dante went from a witty, action-y guy in the original to a silent and stoic protag that says almost nothing for the entire game. Admittedly, Lucia's story isn't bad with her backstory and ties to the game's villain, but I'm still at a point where I don't know if I would actually like Dante in the series from the plot lines we've seen so far. When it comes to gameplay, this is a 3D action game with upgrade elements. As you trek through it, you'll platform around stages, solve puzzles, and fight off enemies with melee and firearm weapons. Now, as with the other games, this is based on the HD collection version of 2. So we have some smoothed out visuals and resolution increase to offer full screen ratios outside of menus and upgrading. Though on the bright side, the cheat codes from the original are still around. So if you want to throw in cheats at the main menu to unlock level select, extra modes, as well as the Diesel, Dante, and Trish characters for navigating the story, you can still use those codes without issue. Now with progression, we have the same basic formula as the first game, but a bit more streamlined in what the developers originally wanted. You go from mission to mission, tackling the different areas, solving puzzles, fighting monsters, and completing those missions to move on to the next. We also have 2 different character campaigns you can go through. We've got Dante, the protag from the first game, or Lucia, the new character. The campaigns aren't really that different as most of the stages they go through are the same, though Lucia has different story beats and bosses than Dante. Not to mention that everybody has different types of upgrades with weapons that they get. At least outside of Trish. If you use the cheat code to unlock her, all of her stuff is already maxed out from the get-go. Now with actually moving around in the game formula, while the fixed and cinematic camera angles are still here as you go through each dungeon, the backtracking of the original has been completely removed. Whenever you try to go back once a new mission starts, you'll often find yourself in a secret puzzle room and then put right back where the current mission takes place. Now we still have a mix of puzzles and combat, though the puzzles are far fewer this time around, with this game not being a concept for Resident Evil 4 that was changed. And the combat's been simplified, even though you do the same thing with slashing swords with one button and firing off guns with the other. Speaking of changes, there are a lot of them made to the formula. Some of them are nice quality of life improvements that people like, and others are how they changed the combat system. That's a big reason why a lot of people hate this game. But let's start with the good quality of life improvements. You no longer have to interact with doors to open them, you simply walk in and the transition starts. The Devil Trigger transformation has a much bigger impact this time around, with you actually transforming and fighting differently depending on what upgrades you have equipped. From throwing fire blades into enemies to actually flying and dashing to get through story puzzles. And most importantly, they added a proper dodge mechanic so you can easily avoid and roll away from enemies, leading to some fun with slashing, dodging, and right back to slashing with your combos. But that combo system is what a lot of fans really don't like about Devil May Cry 2. In the original game, you had an extensive combo system with button combinations for a bunch of different attacks with your melee weapons. Normal slashes, lunges, combos, air throws, and almost all of that just got thrown out for the sequel. You have simple melee combos with your weapons, and even the upgrades this time around for red orbs are just increasing power. No gaining new abilities or combos, just doing more damage than you did before. I didn't mind it all that much, but it's understandable why people didn't like the change with the simpler combos and really just overall difficulty drop between games. However, while I didn't mind the change to the simple combo systems, what I didn't like about combat was the pacing. Dante's movement and attacks just feel really slow in this game. I adjusted to the slow and sluggish movement of Dante, but it felt like he had so much more energy and speed to everything he did in the original, and it really just makes this feel much more sluggish. Though to be fair, playing as Lucia feels much more in tune with the speed of the original. It's just that Dante doesn't. And that brings us to content and length. A single run through this game is overall just going to be around 5 hours on the normal difficulty. Much shorter than the first game. But the main thing here is that you have 2 campaigns to go through, so if you want to see both Dante and Lucia's side of the story, it'll be closer to 9 hours, which isn't too bad. Next up is presentation, and we have the same situation we'd had with the original. Menus are still in a 4:3 ratio, and there really isn't a lot of upscaling or smoothing going on. The character models look a bit better than they did in 1, though a lot of the environments do have noticeable blurring to their textures, a likely product of how much more open and bright this game is with the larger town and city areas versus the cramped and dark castle of the original. Performance is good though, another solid 60 FPS experience from start to finish, docked and handheld. I never had any issues or drops, so we have a lot of good stuff with optimization. And that brings us to battery life. The original model gets 3 to 4.5 hours, 3.5 to 5 on the Lite, 6.5 to 7.5 on the V2, and 7 to 8 on the OLED. Now, in conclusion, Devil May Cry's second entry is in portable form and just as well optimized as the first. Unfortunately, this game did some strange things to Dante's character with the story. The environments don't look fantastic, and the changes they made to make the battle system more basic and sluggish, people will either like or hate. It's certainly not as bad as fans make it out to be and has a bunch of great quality of life improvements, but definitely doesn't match the faster pacing we got in the original. Reviews to Go rates Devil May Cry 2 for the Nintendo Switch a 6 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.